Hey guys, so everybody here pretty much already knows that 9 to 5 jobs are bullshit and pretty much everything you've been told by society is a lie. But what can you actually do about it? Are there any actual ways to escape this wage slave nightmare system? Well, it turns out there are. A lot of them actually. From revenge saving to homesteading to extreme survivalism, we've covered a lot of them on this channel recently. But which options are the best? And more importantly, which one should you personally try for yourself? That's what we're going to be exploring in today's video. Let's get this show on the road. Let's talk about what you personally can do to use this knowledge to escape your miserable 9 to 5. As mentioned earlier, being a farmer is indeed a lot of hard work, but again, this is only if you're being forced to farm for capitalist profits. What if you were to just farm for yourself, however? Well, this is where things get really interesting. A user by the name of Acid Suzanne recently commented on one of my videos.
I'm a 22-year-old gal from Poland. I had always believed in homesteading and learning the art of living. Even though I was from a big city and loved it, I decided to go to a farming technical school, where I quickly learned that if your family doesn't teach you how to farm, nobody will, and there are no available resources for that. Came back to the big city, gained a few professions, and bought a small farm with my mother. It was fifth the price of a normal house. The shock on people's faces when I tell them I'm happy living by myself with my goats and chickens.
I was curious how many hours of work goes into this, so I went ahead and asked. This was quite a long response, so I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here. It turns out chickens and goats are fairly low labor, low maintenance animals. A small herd of chickens can be managed in as little as 1 hour per day. Goat milking can be done even faster, especially if you have a pump. You can then set up a low maintenance vegetable garden, which can take some work to set up, but once you're done with the initial setup, can require as little as 2 to 6 hours of maintenance work per week. To cap it all off, you can make your own cheap no-knead bread, which only takes 3 ingredients and can be made in just a few hours. And just like that, you have all your carbohydrates, proteins, and nutrient needs met with only 10 hours of work per week or even less. Yes, farm work is labor intensive, but only if you're forced to do it for capitalist profits. Acid Suzanne's story is very inspiring indeed, and gives us all a blueprint of one way we can escape the 9 to 5 hellscape. I'm going to be putting minimalistic homesteading in the B tier. It's definitely one of the most chill and comfortable work-free lifestyles on this list. Its one flaw, as I'm sure a lot of you will point out, is it's another one of those things where you kind of need to have money first in order to make money. And yeah, in this economy, a lot of us just don't have money to begin with. So the next strategy is something that literally anyone can do no matter how much money you have. In fact, not only does it not cost any money to start, it actually saves you money to start. Hey guys, so I'm on a mission and I need your help. You see, I've made it the purpose of this channel to defend Gen Z from all these nasty, delusional Gen Z haters, and I've just realized we're starting to get close to taking down the most despicable one yet, the angry guy. This guy is not just another delusional old fart calling Gen Z lazy. He's literally had videos where he openly celebrates Gen Z suffering and even dying. He's just straight up a terrible human being. Now, thankfully, his channel is rapidly dying and we are rapidly gaining ground on him as we speak. So, if you're new here and enjoying this content, definitely consider subscribing and helping us take down the biggest Gen Z hater out there. The current goal is to surpass him in subscribers by the end of summer. With your help, we can absolutely do this. Part 1, Revenge Saving. We're going to kick things off with a familiar face that you may recognize from my Gen Z Revolution video last week, Xiao Jai Jai. Gen Z is waking up and checking out of this BS rigged game modern society wants you to play. And perhaps nowhere is this more pronounced than in China, where young people have gotten so fed up with this horrible job market and the unrealistic pressure to succeed that they've gone from quiet quitting to outright letting it rot. They've been looking for any way possible to escape the 9 to 5 rat race, and they've discovered some very interesting strategies. Perhaps the best one is what they call revenge saving. This is where you spend as little as humanly possible to avoid working a 9 to 5, and also, as this comment puts it perfectly right here, not spending hurts those in power. The best professionally unemployed revenge saver I could find is the streamer Xiao Jai Jai, a young Chinese woman who gets by on spending just 10 Chinese yuan, or about $1.30 per day. She does this by spending most of her time cooking the cheapest possible meals without sacrificing health or taste. A lot of the meals she cooks legitimately look delicious and healthy, not to mention the additional health benefits you get from not having an asshole boss scream in your face 8 hours a day. Now, in the last video I mentioned her, a lot of you were skeptical that this strategy could work in the West. Some of you doubted that these meals were really healthy, others pointed out that with how insane inflation has gotten in recent years, there's no way it would be that cheap anymore, even with revenge saving. These were fair concerns, so I decided to try it out for myself just to see how much it would cost and if the strategy is truly viable. So I looked up some of the most cheap and delicious meals you could cook without sacrificing health and nutrition, and this is what I came up with. These oatmeal banana pancakes are great for breakfast. I made these myself actually the other day. They have a very good complex carb profile and cost less than $1 to make per serving. Red lentils are very cheap and a great source of plant protein, and they can easily be made into lentil bread or tofu, which increases their volume dramatically and even gives you days worth of food for less than $1. Vegetables are also very cheap and can be added to ramen cooked with some eggs or meat to give you a fantastic combination of taste with plenty of nutrients, carbs, and protein to boot. Now, with how expensive everything has gotten in the West, living off $1.30 per day like Xiao Jai Jai is probably unrealistic at this point. But from what I've personally tried and experienced, a $3 a day budget is very doable. Of course, this could be slightly more or slightly less depending on where exactly you live, but the point still stands that it'll be a significant step towards escaping the 9 to 5 wage slavery system. This highlights another point I've been harping on for quite some time now, which is that in this economy, in midst of this insane inflation, reducing your living expenses is just as, if not more valuable, than trying to earn more money. Gen Z has rightfully seen that busting your ass just to make more money, only to have the government print nonstop and constantly devalue that money, is a total waste of time. But reducing your dependency on money, well, that's how you truly hurt those in power, as this comment puts perfectly. I'm going to put revenge saving in the A tier, as it's something literally everyone can and should do if they want to escape the 9 to 5. But revenge saving only helps save on your food bill. It doesn't help you with these insane rent prices we all got to deal with. So is there a way around this too? Well, yes, you just have to be creative and brave enough. Part 3, extreme survivalism. What if you had absolutely nothing? $0 saved up, 0 job prospects, and 0 support from your family. A common response I get in a lot of my videos is that these solutions don't work for everyone. Not everyone can make it as an influencer, not everyone has good parents that they can live with, or just has enough saved up to start their own business idea. Well, this is something that literally anyone could do, even if you had absolutely no money saved up at all. Though I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for reasons you're soon about to see. This is Eric Grankvist. You can consider him the absolute final boss Giga Chad of escaping the 9 to 5. About 6 years ago, when Eric graduated high school, he found himself in the same situation as a lot of you. Hailing from Stockholm, Sweden, he couldn't find much meaning in going any of the traditional routes, such as working a 9 to 5 or going to college. So as a result, he felt extremely lost and had no clue what he wanted to do in life. Then one day, he saw a documentary of the legendary American survivalist Richard Prunek and became inspired to take a similar journey of his own. And so he ventured out into the middle of the woods with nothing but himself, his awesome dog, and a few basic survival tools. 6 years later, he's now built a fully renovated and cozy, spacious log cabin with a kitchen and even an underground food cellar and heating system. He hunts, gathers, and grows all his own food and lives purely off the land in the most literal sense. This is the truest form of self-dependency right here. I kind of laugh when people say you need to get a job because it's not good to be dependent on the government or your parents. But getting a job doesn't make you independent at all. It just makes you dependent on a corporation instead. Now, this guy, this right here, this is true independence. Let's spend some time talking about how Grankvist actually pulls this off. Grankvist first scouts a location lush with free food resources such as elderberries and beets. He moves very slowly and deliberately in order to conserve energy. The first priority is to find a source of fresh, clean water, as the human body can go a few weeks without food, but only 3 days without water. You can find this in the wild by tapping into the sap of a birch tree, or simply by boiling water from a stream. He then forages for easy food sources such as beets and elderberries, which are quite abundant in nature. You can also catch fish from nearby streams as well. Then, you can set up a simple structure like a debris hut as a temporary shelter to keep you dry and safe while you work towards your ultimate goal of building a log cabin. Then finally, the process of building the cabin begins. Logging, debarking, and building the cabin one piece at a time. It took Grankvist years to build up this cabin, but the advantage of this is that once he finished building it, it was his and his alone. None of this working your whole life just to never be able to own a house anyways that we have to go through today. Grankvist documented his entire journey on YouTube and has even secured a sponsor from a solar battery company, which allows him to live off the grid and do YouTube. He's accumulated millions of views and subscribers, and at this point, he definitely has enough money to move back into society and live a pretty lavish lifestyle if he wanted. But it doesn't seem like he even wants to at this point. His channel is still quite active, and even after 6 years of living in the wild, he seems to be at peace, just enjoying the peaceful connection he's found with nature, and is straight up just more content and happy out there. And after all the insanity of the ridiculous modern world we live in today, I honestly can't say I blame him. Now, again, I must reiterate, this is obviously insanely risky and dangerous, so try this at your own risk. This is not any sort of professional life advice whatsoever. I personally would recommend any of the other options we discussed in the video before considering this as a last resort. I just figured I'd include it because I found the story to be incredibly inspiring, and for those of you who are really stuck at zero right now, with no money and no support from your family, this might be your best option if you would really rather do anything than work a 9 to 5. I'm going to put extreme survivalism in the D tier. Don't get me wrong, I think Grankvist is an absolute gigachad, and what he's done is probably the most impressive out of all these so far. And that's exactly why extreme survival is in the D tier, for the simple reason that I just don't think most people could pull it off. But if you're really fed up with society and don't have anything saved up at all, you could definitely try it as a last resort. Number 2, van life. Van life has absolutely surged in popularity the last few years, with van life influencers such as Ryan Toomey and former Marvel filmmaker Trent Arrant amassing hundreds of thousands of views. This involves converting a van into a livable space and driving around the country stealth camping. It actually surprised me just how much you can do within the space of a van. These guys managed to do everything from cooking Korean barbecue to having an epic gaming setup. The main issue when it comes to van life is there's a pretty hefty barrier to entry cost. It can cost anywhere from between $10,000 to $30,000 to convert a van into a livable van. It'll be around the $10K range if you learn to do it yourself, and the $30K range if you pay to get it done professionally. This, of course, isn't even factoring the cost of buying the van itself. Assuming you have enough saved up to somehow afford it, however, van life can be a very decent option. Now, before I continue, I have to give a very important legal disclaimer. When it comes to van life or any of the vehicle-related options I'm about to present to you, every place is going to have different rules about where you can legally camp/park. It is your responsibility to properly research the laws so that you don't get in trouble with the cops. I've included a link in the description with a great video guide on how to do exactly that. So, according to van life blogs on the internet, van life typically costs between $1,500 to $2,000 to sustain. This includes everything from your food to gas to paid campsites and gym memberships, as that's how van lifers typically shower. Now, if you're especially frugal, van life can be as cheap as $800 a month. This is obviously a huge upgrade over the insane modern day $2,000 a month rent prices we have to pay these days, if you ask me. And the lifestyle itself actually seems quite good. I mean, you can get a very cozy setup for sleeping, cooking, and even for gaming. I'm going to go ahead and put van life in the C tier. It kind of has the same inherent problem that most of these solutions have, which is, yeah, you kind of have to have money to make money. Also, as you can see, it's not the most comfortable lifestyle. Now, imagine van life, but out in the big blue sea, living like a modern pirate. This is what's up next. All land is technically owned already, either by somebody else or by the government. So you're never completely quite checked out of society that way. And I guess that just means we're still ultimately stuck being forced to participate in this BS rigged 9-to-5 rat race, right? Wait. All land is technically owned. The key word in that sentence being land. And as we all learned in grade school geography class, only 30% of the Earth's surface is land. What happens when we venture out into the other 70% of the Earth, the sea? Well, this is where a whole new world opens up with a whole different set of rules. This is Ben and Kika, a young couple who run the YouTube channel Sailing Uma, which is also the name of their boat. They met in college 10 years ago where, like many of you, they quickly realized how much of a scam modern society is. They decided they wanted nothing to do with it at all. The corporate rat race, the student loans, the soulless 9-to-5 meaningless jobs. So they decided to sell everything and invest it into their future home, Uma, a 36 by 12 foot sailboat. They spent a lot of time renovating it and equipping it with sustainable solar panels to make sure it becomes a full-on viable living space. Now, remember how we talked about how nearly all land is already owned, therefore presenting potential problems for the unemployment god of the land? The unemployment gods of the sea get around this issue through a very clever legal loophole. According to international law, countries only own the coastline up to 12 nautical miles away from the shore. Beyond that, however, you are officially in open international waters that no country or entity has any control over. So this means, so long as you have a boat to live on, you can stay there as long and as much as you want. No landlord charging ridiculous rent prices constantly breathing down your neck. No bosses constantly screaming at you about the next deadline. Just you, the wind, and the big, blue, beautiful sea. So, let's talk about the next big question I'm sure you're all wondering by now. How the hell do they survive living full-time on a boat? How do they get food, fresh water, and the power and electricity needed to run their YouTube channel? Let's start with the most obvious solution to the food problem: fishing. They're already living on a boat sailing across the sea, so catching fish is the easiest and simplest no-brainer here. Not much explanation is needed. But you can't just live off fish alone, obviously. So, what about the other foods you need to survive? Well, there are plenty of tropical islands you can sail to that have free, naturally growing fruits such as coconuts, mangoes, and bananas that you can forage. And once or twice a month, they dock in a cheap port and stock up on some cheap staples such as rice, beans, bread, and canned food. When it comes to getting enough fresh water, a simple tarp can be set up to collect rainwater, which is especially abundant out at sea with all the storms they get. There's also solar-powered desalinators that convert seawater to drinkable fresh water. Technically, you could live out at sea with no money at all. I mean, people literally did this for centuries in the past. But in the modern day, securing at least a bit of an income stream will make your life so much easier. And you don't need all that much. In the modern day, it's easier than ever to stay connected and work remotely, even at sea, with the advent of Starlink internet, which is how Ben and Kika are able to run their YouTube channel. This, by the way, is all powered by solar panels installed on the boat, and because most of your basic living expenses are already covered with the setup, you really don't need all that much money to survive and even be comfortable. In one of their Q&A videos, Ben and Kika said that they don't really worry about future finances or saving up for retirement because according to them, $500 a month is more than enough to be comfortable with this lifestyle. They also mentioned that you don't have to do YouTube to make money with this lifestyle either. You can do literally any sort of online freelance job. And if those are too saturated, there's another way you can monetize your boat lifestyle. In the same Q&A, they mentioned that in their journey, they met another couple who made a supplementary income purely off occasionally giving boat tours and massages through Airbnb. Now, if you're interested in trying this, it's important to understand that this lifestyle is not all sunshine and roses. You have to learn some seafaring skills as the oceans can be quite rough, and the last thing you want is to have some equipment malfunction in the middle of the sea with no idea how to fix it. The initial investment cost actually wasn't as much as I expected it to be. But it's not zero either, obviously. According to this source right here, you can get a seaworthy boat for even under $20,000. And it can be even cheaper if you learn how to make some of the renovations yourself. It's definitely way cheaper than 4 years of college tuition and all the BS subsequent student loan debts that come along with it. That's for sure. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to put living in a boat in the F tier. As cool as it sounds, sailing around the world like a modern pirate, reality is just quite different. Not only is it quite a hefty initial investment, the lifestyle is just pretty dangerous and uncomfortable, and to be honest, it's just something I don't think most people could pull off. But anyways, this is just my opinion. If this is something you really want to do, don't let me stop you. Anyways, let's finish off this video with a strategy, a significantly easier one, probably the easiest one on this list for most of you out there to actually accomplish. Part 2, geo-hacking. Now, one thing that's undoubtedly made the economy significantly worse for young people today than what our parents had is the rise of globalization. We're having to compete against literally millions more immigrants and outsourced jobs than the previous generations could even fathom. What if, however, you could play the opposite side of the globalization coin and use it to your advantage instead? Well, this is what geo-hacking is, and after how bad you've been screwed over by globalization, this is more than fair game. Geo-hacking is nothing new. It involves simply securing some sort of online income and moving abroad where your living expenses are significantly lower. I know this strategy very well because this is actually exactly what I did in my own personal quest of escaping the 9-to-5 rat race myself. What I didn't know, however, was just how much further you can take it these days. There are places like Thailand, Vietnam, Georgia, and Albania where you can live off as little as just $300 per month. Yes, you heard that right, $300 per month. How the hell is this possible, you might ask? Well, let's break it down. Here's an article with a detailed breakdown on the cost of living in Albania. In the capital Tirana, an apartment is between 400 to 600 euros per month in the city, but in the suburbs, you can find options for as little as $250 to $400 per month. Now, let's say you find one for $300. To take this a step even further, you could find a friend who has a similar mindset of escaping the 9-to-5 to tag along this journey with you. And then you could split the rent and, as roommates, each only pay $150 per month. Food is much cheaper in Albania as well. And as we already talked about with revenge saving, it's even possible to live off $100 for food in the West. So in Albania, it should be more than doable. Now, you've paid off your rent and food with just $250 per month. And this leaves you with $50 a month left over for any various miscellaneous living expenses you might have. Now, of course, $300 a month is really super minimalistic and uncomfortable, even in Albania. I'm just saying it's technically possible, but obviously insanely difficult unless you have the absolute utmost level of mental discipline. Probably, I would say a more realistic range to aim for is between $700 to $800 a month. That way you can actually live comfortably and enjoy life a bit. One key lesson to learn from all this is that Gen Z, through finding these creative, unexpected ways to live without a job, has also redefined what it means to earn a living. I get comments all the time from boomers being like, but not everyone can make a living as an influencer or through their dreams and passions. Well, first of all, with how awful the job market is, the exact same logic applies to normal 9 to 5 jobs now too. Not everyone can even get a normal 9 to 5 job anymore either, as we are all painfully aware of. Second of all, when you find ways to creatively reduce your living expenses and your dependency on society in general, it becomes a lot easier to make a living doing what you love. Sure, not everyone can be Mr. Beast, but if you only have to spend $1.30 per day on food, then making a living through your passions becomes a lot more achievable, as the definition of a living itself is just a few dollars per day rather than having to make $100,000 a year just to pay back your ridiculous student loan debts. I'll put geo-hacking in the A tier. The only challenge here is securing some sort of online income to make this option possible, which admittedly can be a pretty tall task, and we'll definitely do a full video on how to make money online in the near future. But if you are successful at this, it's one of the easiest strategies to pull off on this list, and your quality of life is actually going to improve, as in many places, life is actually better than in the West right now, and a lot cheaper. So if you're curious, here's the original video in which we not only break down these strategies right here, but we also have some completely new ones that you didn't see in this video. Check it out. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.